Hello and welcome back to Microsoft Hates Greg. My name is Greg Deckler, and let me start with where the heck I've been for the last few months. Right, I think it was early October that I posted my last video here, and at least that long for DAX for Humans. Maybe some of you are out there asking questions like, does Greg have nothing to say? Did Greg's company put the hammer down on social media? Has Greg lost his passion for Power BI? Did Microsoft have Greg assassinated? Right? I know you guys have questions. Well, the simple answer is that I've just been freaking busy. That's really it. You see, I just moved houses, and that meant renovating the new house, moving, renovating the old place, selling the old place. Along with that, I've been working on 2 books, The Definitive Guide to Power Query with Rick DeGroot and Melissa DeCorte, as well as Power BI Cookbook 3rd edition, which, if I can control the page count, might actually be printed in color, so that's exciting. And along with that, I've been spending, more time with my son. I've been grinding some Sea of Thieves a bit, finally ranked up to Pirate Legend. A lot of Lethal Company lately. Just been busy, and something had to give, right? So, but the good news is I'm all moved into the new place. The old house is sold as of last Friday. Pretty much done with one of the books, Definitive Guide to Power Query. So just really some technical editing and things that needs to happen there. So hopefully I'll be back to making some regular videos here for my small loyal fans and fan base and subscribers, right? All right, so I have this video and 3 others planned, and they all kind of cover some of the same themes. So they sort of are going to kind of weave together, hopefully. That's the hope. And these themes include things like complexity and consistency, prioritization, sloppiness, and the community as well. And so I've been kind of struggling with where to start the conversation, and finally landed on this video. So here we go. Now suppose I said that there was this software product that has been out in the market for some time now, has a huge and growing user base, has a whole community of people that write add-ons and extensions for it, is constantly releasing new features, but has a growing backlog of community requested fixes that seem to never be given priority or get done, and some major features that have been released that have effectively been abandoned. Right now, any guesses to what this software program that I might be referring to? Well, if you guessed Power BI, then you wouldn't exactly be wrong, right? But I was actually referring to another Microsoft software program, a little piece of software called Minecraft. You see, in talking with my son, he started talking about his frustrations with Minecraft development. He was complaining that Mojang, Microsoft, seemed to prioritize like new features versus existing features and seemed to completely ignore long-standing community feedback and complaints. So I'm thinking to myself, wow, this sounds familiar, right? And just for context, a good example of ignoring existing features is RTX in Minecraft. Huge deal when it came out. Replaced the ill-fated super duper graphics pack, which if you want to see what a big deal that was at the time, look that up on YouTube and check out the production quality of that video introducing the super duper graphics pack. It's a freaking musical, all right? And it just, it blends in real world and animation and all kinds of stuff, right? So it's pretty cringy in some respects. There's some rather atrocious Z clipping artifacts, but I mean, overall, there was some significant time, money, and effort spent on just the advertisement for that thing, for it to just wind up just going away and never being released, and being replaced with RTX. But even with RTX, Mojang has pretty much ignored it to the point that it's kind of unplayable now if you try to use RTX within Minecraft Bedrock. It got so bad that a group of individuals, including my son, worked on a mod for Minecraft Bedrock to essentially fix it. That's how bad it got. It was basically unplayable. Pretty cool, but I'll get into that some of my later videos around community and the effects of community on prioritization and development. Another example of this is like the inventory system within Microsoft. Huge complaint by a large swath of the community, but just been completely ignored by the devs. All right, so I think there's a lot of parallels, and I think they're interesting in my opinion. Maybe they're not in others, but they are to me in terms of the significant parallels between, the stuff that my son is complaining about around Minecraft and Power BI, and some of my complaints around Power BI. I mean, other than last year, there have been tons of features released for Power BI every month, right? But community complaints are largely ignored if they deal with the existing functionality, right? Like measure totals, perhaps. And then there's the subject of just ignored features, which is kind of this sort of the topic of this video. So as a segue, Microsoft GA Fabric is GA, right? And it's pretty legit. They at least fixed a lot of the majority of my complaints, like leaving around useless artifacts and all kinds of stuff like that. You've seen my Fabric videos. Now, of course, it's GA with like a whole laundry list of limitations, right? So there's kind of this obvious choice made, I think, to get it to GA versus actually having kind of a fully capable product. I mean, have you seen the list of limitations? Let me bring that up here and try and see if I can share out my screen here. Share this guy. All right, there's so many limitations in Fabric that they literally have a page for limitations in Microsoft Fabric. That's the title of the web page, right? You come down here and you start getting into all of these different limitations. And just like for tables, for example, I mean, you start getting into tables, and so it's like there's a whole laundry list of stuff, around just the limitations around tables, like limitations, computed columns, 1024 maximum columns per table, all this stuff, right? Computed columns being a pretty big deal, honestly. So all these limitations, whereas I think, if you put the feature list of Fabric next to the limitation list of Fabric, limitations list might actually be longer, right? So now, I know there's probably people out there like, Greg, they've seen my videos, and they're like, Greg, you just hate Fabric, right? You just hate it. So I don't. I really don't. I just despise Microsoft Fabric, right? But I do have my complaints about it, right? I don't like how it doesn't really add much to Power BI. I think the vast majority of Power BI users could never dip their toe into Fabric and be just fine, right? They could just basically ignore it. I don't like how it took the dev focus away from Power BI, and you see that in the feature list of what's been released in Power BI for the last year, especially if you're like, okay, they released some features, but they're preview features. They're not actually GA'd, right? I don't like how it was marketed. I think Satya was like the most significant blah, blah, blah since SQL Server. I mean, let's be real, it primarily is a repackaging of Synapse serviced within the Power BI service. That's pretty much what Fabric is. And I know there's new stuff in OneLake and blah, 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 but pretty much what it is, right? Anyway, I digress. What I want you to consider is this, right? From being released to preview until GA was 6 months. I think the preview was like, the preview was announced in May, about October, November or so, it was GA. 6 months. Now think about that. And let's compare that to Power BI, right? So let's see here. Let me bring up Power BI. And it's one I just happen to have open here. DAX, your DAX is garbage. It's a fun video. Let's go here to options. I don't know what that's doing there. Options, and then let's go to preview features. If it comes up. Okay, now this is the first time that I can recall that literally I had a scroll wheel active. The scroll bar is active for your preview features. How crazy is that, right? And if you start looking at more in depth on these preview features, I got a little thing here, right here. So I started doing some research on these preview features and how long they've been in preview, right? So you got shape map, 5 years, right? Spanish language Q&A, 5 years. So Microsoft apparently cares more about Fabric than inclusivity, I guess, whatever. Q&A for live connected analysis, 4 years, 1.5 years, 3 years, 2 years. Now some of this stuff, right? I mean, these years, the way I found these was either I searched for the original announcement for, hey, a shape, in the release, the monthly release notes or whatever they have, hey, I found that, where shape map was announced as preview. Or the other way that I went about this was I would go out to GitHub and to learn articles from Microsoft. You can actually kind of, go to edit them essentially. And you can then look at the history of those GitHub articles and you can see the first time they were posted. So, I'm not going to swear that these are, absolutely the absolute, when these features, how long they've been in preview, but you're talking about like 30 plus years if you sum all this stuff up of stuff that, in preview in the aggregate. Oh yeah, Power BI Home and Desktop wacky link. This one was fun because this is how I click on the learn more. Then I would edit to, the GitHub and then look at the history and stuff. But like Power BI Home and Desktop, watch this. Learn more. It just takes you to Power BI documentation page. It doesn't even take you to the announcement of it or anything like that. So bizarre, wacky stuff. So wacky link. I don't know, and they just picked a random web page to go to, right? I guess. So yeah, I mean, so where am I going with this, right? So when Microsoft prioritizes things like Fabric, right, they can get stuff done. But all of these, some of these things are pretty major features that they added, like field parameters and stuff like that. But field parameters is huge to a large degree and very useful. But it's been 1.5 years since it was released to preview, and they haven't been able to push it out the door to get the GA. Right. And I think, again, a lot of this speaks to some of the themes that I'm going to be covering in this series of kind of the next few videos I'm going to make here, which focus around complexity, consistency, prioritization, just general sloppiness that's starting to appear in Power BI, in my opinion, and the community's impact on this prioritization and that sort of stuff. Oh yeah, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention data marts, right? Data marts, 1.5 years they've been around. And so you start to really think about this and like, well, okay, so how long is it? Once something goes past, I would say, a year in preview, you really have to start to doubt whether it's ever going to GA. If it goes past 6 months or a year, will it ever get to GA? Will it ever be prioritized by the product team to like push it, out the door? I don't expect. Well, if history is the service, you're right. All I expect is this scroll wheel to just keep scrolling. Maybe, there'll be 3 or 4 pages that I'll have to scroll by in terms of preview features. And so, this doesn't even cover. I don't even think visual level calculations are even on this list anywhere. Which, how long have they been talking about visual level calculations? Like what, 2 years or better? So I'm really interested in the community's feedback on this. Am I making a mountain out of a molehill, right? I mean, are other people seeing some of the things that I'm seeing with Power BI development and prioritization in that? Is it a concern? I have major concerns with a lot of this stuff, with where this is going. That I can see causing significant problems in the near future for Power BI. But that's really all I had for this video. Wanted to, glad to be back making videos. My setup still is kind of a work in progress. That's why I have, this back here in my back, as far as the virtual background, if you will. I still don't have everything set up, the way I want it in the new digs, but we'll get there. And I hope you guys will continue watching. And it's great to be back making videos, and hope you enjoy it. I'll talk to you later.